Have you ever felt like your mind is a constant storm, swirling with regret, anger, and fear? That's how Ethan Miller felt every single day. Every mistake, every wrong decision, replayed over and over in his mind. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't stop the endless cycle of self-blame. His thoughts were loud, chaotic, and overwhelming. One evening, after another restless day, he found himself walking in the park, lost in his own turmoil. That's when he saw an old man sitting on a bench. The man, with his calm demeanor, looked like he had no cares in the world. Ethan, desperate for peace, sat next to him and began to speak about his struggles. "I can't let go," he confessed. "The past keeps holding me back. I feel like I'm trapped in it." The old man turned to him with a soft smile. "Tell me, Ethan," he asked, "what happens if you carry a glass of water for too long?" Ethan, puzzled, answered, "It gets heavy." The old man nodded, his eyes gentle. "And yet, you hold on to your past like it's that glass of water. The longer you hold it, the heavier it becomes. Why not put it down?" Ethan sat in silence, the weight of the old man's words hanging in the air. The storm in his mind raged on, but something in the simplicity of the question stuck with him. He had spent years replaying his past mistakes, convinced that they were part of who he was. But the idea of letting go, of putting the glass down, felt like a revelation. He thought about it as he walked home that night, each step carrying a bit more lightness, like a small piece of his burden was being released with every stride. The next morning, Ethan went back to the park, seeking the old man again. This time, the park was quiet, the sunlight filtering through the trees. He found the man sitting on the same bench, as if he had been waiting for him. "I've been thinking about what you said," Ethan started, his voice unsure. "But it's not that simple, is it? Just letting go? I've tried before." The old man smiled softly, his eyes kind. "Ethan, you're not letting go of your past. You're letting go of the weight you carry from it. Think of it like this. You don't need to forget the past, but you don't have to let it dictate your present. The glass didn't change in weight when you held it longer, did it? It was only your grip that made it heavy." Ethan felt a shift in his chest, a subtle shift towards peace. It was as if the path ahead was no longer clouded, and he could see that moving forward didn't mean erasing the past. It meant accepting it, understanding it, and choosing not to carry its weight anymore. Ethan returned to his daily life with a sense of clarity he had never known before. The weight of his past no longer controlled him, but rather, he controlled his response to it. The glass of water, once so heavy, was now empty. He noticed the little things, the way the sunlight danced on the leaves, the feeling of the earth beneath his feet, and how his breath became deeper, calmer. He still remembered the past, those moments he once thought were unchangeable, but they no longer carried the same burden. He no longer woke up each morning weighed down by the thoughts of what he should have done or what he had failed to do. His life slowly shifted. At work, he found himself more present, less distracted. His relationships, once strained by his endless overthinking, began to heal. His friends noticed the change. They commented on his newfound peace, how he seemed more grounded, more content. One afternoon, as he sat at the park again, he realized that the storm in his mind had finally settled. He was no longer waiting for something to change. He was simply living, fully, in the present moment. The past, with all its mistakes, no longer defined him. He had put down the glass, and in doing so, he had found the freedom to embrace the now. Ethan woke up one morning, feeling the cool air against his skin as sunlight filtered through his window. It was a new day, but this time, it felt different. For the first time in years, he didn't carry the weight of yesterday with him. He moved through his morning routine with ease, noticing how each moment felt full, without rushing or overthinking. As he made his coffee, he caught himself smiling. It wasn't a big, dramatic shift, but there was a quiet peace inside him. At work, his focus had never been sharper. No longer distracted by the noise in his head, Ethan found joy in the simple tasks. His colleagues noticed too. They commented on how calm he seemed, how he no longer seemed burdened by the past. He even laughed more easily now, a sound that had been lost in the years of self-doubt and regret. That afternoon, while walking to the park, Ethan stopped for a moment. He closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and realized how far he had come. He wasn't defined by his mistakes anymore. He had learned to let them go, to embrace each day as it came. And with that acceptance, Peace had found its place within him. Ethan sat quietly in the park one afternoon, watching the children play and the leaves rustle in the breeze. For the first time, he realized how little he had truly lived in the moment before. His mind was no longer clouded by the weight of past mistakes or the fear of future regrets. Instead, he was here, fully present, with no distractions. He thought about the long journey that had brought him to this point, the countless days spent trapped in his own thoughts, the struggle to break free. Yet now, it all seemed so simple. He no longer needed to chase after peace. It had always been there, just waiting for him to let go. As he reflected, he remembered the words of the old man from the park, and a smile crept across his face. He had put the glass down. He wasn't burdened by the past anymore. Ethan knew that life was still full of challenges, but he no longer feared them. He had learned that peace doesn't come from avoiding mistakes, but from accepting them and choosing to move forward without regret. And in that moment, he knew he had truly begun to live. Ethan walked through the park, feeling a sense of calm he had never known before. The world around him seemed brighter, more vibrant. He noticed the laughter of the children, the gentle sway of the trees in the wind, the warmth of the sun on his face. He had become aware of the simple beauty of each moment. It was as if everything had slowed down, allowing him to truly appreciate the present. For the first time in years, he wasn't chasing something in the future, or dwelling on something from the past. He was simply being. As he walked, his thoughts turned to the lessons he had learned, how letting go of the past had opened up space for peace and growth. He realized that this peace wasn't a destination, it was a way of living. Ethan knew that life would continue to have its challenges, but he no longer feared them. The weight he had carried for so long was gone, replaced by a quiet strength. He was no longer burdened by regret. And with that understanding, he found himself smiling, not because everything was perfect, but because he had learned to embrace the imperfections and move forward with peace in his heart. Ethan woke up the next day with a quiet sense of purpose. His mind, once a chaotic storm, was now calm, and his heart, once burdened, felt light. He realized that the shift he had been waiting for wasn't a grand moment, but a series of small decisions, each one leading him further away from regret and closer to peace. As he went through his morning routine, he didn't rush. He was present in each moment, fully aware of every breath, every step. At work, his focus was clearer than ever. He no longer felt the need to prove himself to others. Instead, he focused on doing his best, not for validation, but for his own growth. He started to appreciate the little wins, finishing a project, helping a colleague, or simply enjoying a quiet lunch. His relationships improved as well. People noticed the change in him, the way he listened more intently, smiled more often, and seemed at peace. One evening, as he sat on his porch, Ethan reflected on how far he had come. The man who had once been trapped in the past was now free, not because his life was perfect, but because he had learned to let go of what no longer served him. And with that, he felt truly alive. Ethan's life had shifted in ways he never expected. The days no longer felt like a race. Each moment was something to be experienced, not rushed through. He found peace not in the absence of challenges, but in his ability to face them with clarity. At work, his colleagues began to seek his advice more often, noticing the calmness in his approach. He was no longer the man trapped by his past mistakes, constantly second-guessing himself. Instead, he was the man who had learned to walk forward, accepting what was behind him without letting it hold him back. His personal life flourished too. He began to build deeper connections, understanding that true relationships were built on honesty, presence, and vulnerability. Ethan learned to be kinder to himself. Every mistake was no longer a weight to carry, but a lesson to grow from. One evening, while walking along the path by the river, he paused and looked at the still water. He had let go, truly let go. It wasn't a single moment that changed him. It was the decision to release the past and embrace the present. And in that acceptance, he found the freedom to finally be himself, fully and completely. Ethan sat on his porch, watching the sunset paint the sky in hues of orange and purple. His life had transformed in ways he could never have imagined just a few months ago. He wasn't the same person who had once been trapped by the weight of his mistakes, endlessly replaying every wrong step. Now, his thoughts were clear, his heart light. He realized that true freedom came not from perfection, but from acceptance. The mistakes of his past no longer defined him. They were simply parts of his journey, lessons that had shaped him into the person he was today. He no longer searched for happiness, because he understood that happiness was not something to be found, but something to be lived in each moment. His relationships deepened, not because he was trying harder, but because he was simply being himself. The pressure he once felt to achieve and prove himself melted away. He had learned that peace was not something outside of him, but something he carried within. And as the stars began to twinkle above, Ethan smiled. He was no longer chasing the future or holding on to the past. He was finally living in the present, fully and without regret.